All right, let's get right into it. For the last decade or so, we've had this incredible tech that can predict what customers will do. But what if that was only half the story? Today, we're going to look at how this really ambitious idea of mapping out a customer's future is being totally reinvented. We're moving away from these stiff, rigid predictions and into a real human-like conversation, all powered by AI. This quote from Gary Jackson, who came up with the original concept, it hits you right between the eyes, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the problem. We get so caught up in the data, the algorithms, just the cool factor of being able to predict things. But we kind of forgot about the actual person on the other end of that prediction. We built these amazing systems that could see what's coming, but they couldn't have a simple chat about it. And the whole point was never just to predict, it was always about connect. And that leads us to this key idea: preventative analytics. So look, this isn't about just telling someone, hey, this thing is going to happen to you, good luck. No, it's about saying, look, this might happen, so let's talk. Let's figure out how we can get ready for it, adapt to it, or maybe even change that outcome entirely. It's really the difference between a weather report saying it's going to rain and someone actually handing you an umbrella. And to really understand how important this is, listen to this real story. A woman finds out she has an 80% probability of getting cancer. Now, based on that one piece of information, she makes this incredibly tough call to start preventative therapy. And later, she was diagnosed with a different cancer. But here's the thing. Because she was already in treatment, she had a head start. She had a fighting chance. That right there, that's the life or death power of moving beyond just seeing the future to actually trying to shape it. So, how did they first try to make this whole thing work? Let's take a look at the original map of me, a concept that was honestly way ahead of its time. The whole philosophy behind it was pretty simple, but also pretty radical for the time. The idea was, hey, let's stop secretly scraping customer data. Let's make this a transparent, two-way street. The company shows its cards and says, based on what we know, here's what your life journey might look like. And then the customer gets to chime in to say, yep, that's right, or nope, you got that wrong, or it's more complicated. It was all about building trust by working together. Okay, so let's pop the hood. How did they actually build this collaborative map of me a decade ago? What did the plumbing look like? So what you're seeing here is the original blueprint. And for its time, this was a beast of a system. It was using SAP HANA for crunching data in real time and the R programming language for all the heavy-duty statistical work. You can see how the data, things like demographics and purchase history, flows in from the left, goes through all these complex analytical steps in the middle, and spits out a prediction for the customer on the right. So let's break that down, step by step. First, it would pull in live data. Second, custom models built in R would do their magic and make a prediction. Third, the system would actually map out these potential life events, a new job, a new family member, that kind of thing. Fourth, it showed this map to the customer in a pretty simple interface. And then finally, the most important part, step 5, the customer had to validate. And we're not talking vague horoscopes here. The predictions were super specific. The system wouldn't just say, you might have a child soon. No, it would give you a hard number, like a 77.2% chance of a child event happening in the next 2 years. That level of detail made the future feel really concrete, something you could actually act on. But here it is. This was the system's Achilles heel. That super important customer validation step, it all boiled down to just 3 buttons. Yes, no, or maybe. That whole two-way street we talked about, it was basically a multiple-choice question. It had no way to understand nuance or context, the messy, beautiful complexity of a real human life. And that one major flaw, the fact that it couldn't have a real conversation, is where the story takes a huge turn. Because the original idea was genius, but the technology to really do it justice, well, that was just around the corner. The difference here is just, wow. It tells the whole story visually. On the left, you've got the old way of doing things. It's linear, it's complicated, it's got all these custom-coded boxes. And then on the right, you have the new AI-powered flow. It's so much cleaner, so much more streamlined. You can just see that something fundamental has changed under the hood. So let's dive into this new blueprint and see how it creates a totally different and, frankly, better experience. We're moving from a system that just asks questions to one that can actually have a conversation. So the new flow might look a little familiar on the surface, but the engine is completely different. Data comes into a modern cloud platform, sure, but then, and this is the game changer, instead of all those custom R scripts, you've got a machine learning and large language model layer. That's the brain. It generates these smart outputs that are then delivered through a conversational UI. Think a really smart chatbot, which lets the customer give incredibly rich feedback just by talking to it. And this one sentence says it all. The old system predicts a child event. Simple enough. But the customer's real life is so much more specific. A yes, no, or maybe button could never, ever capture that critical detail. But a conversational AI, it gets it. It understands the nuance, and that understanding leads to a much smarter, much more accurate picture of the customer. Let's just put them side by side. For feedback, you go from rigid buttons to natural conversational language. For explainability, you go from basically zero, a total black box, to having it built right in. The AI can actually tell you why it thinks what it thinks. And for improving the model, you go from these slow, manual updates to continuous, real-time learning. It is a massive upgrade across the board. And this is maybe the most crucial point. The AI doesn't just spit out a prediction. It explains itself in plain English. This kind of transparency is everything when it comes to building trust. Suddenly, you're not just a data point being analyzed by some mysterious algorithm. You're an active participant in a conversation, and you get to understand the logic behind what's being shared with you. Okay, but having this incredible new power, the power to not just map someone's future, but to actually sit down and talk about it with them, that brings up some huge new questions. This isn't just a tech problem anymore. It's about being responsible. It's about ethics. Yeah, this brings us right back to the human element. I mean, think about it. If you can see the potential roads someone's life might take, how do you even begin to handle that conversation? Not every customer is going to want to see their potential future mapped out, and the technology has to be smart enough and respectful enough to handle that. You can't just unleash this kind of thing without some serious common sense rules of the road. And we're talking about really practical stuff here, not just fuzzy ideas. It's the basics, right? Like getting explicit consent, making it super easy for people to opt in or opt out. Making sure a human being takes a look at really sensitive predictions, giving people the absolute right to have their data deleted. And maybe the biggest one of all, if a customer tells you the map is wrong, the system has to believe them, period. And fix it right away. It all comes back to earning that trust. And so, we end up right back where we started, with a question. This idea of creating a detailed conversational map of your potential future, it isn't science fiction anymore. It's here. The big question is no longer, can we do this? It's, how should we do it? And maybe more personally for all of us, if someone offered you the map of you, would you actually want to look?